Hearts have planned a board meeting for this weekend. And that's a little bit of a Hotline Live exclusive. I'm told that part of the reason for, why it's this weekend is that Anne Budge has been on holiday, which isn't a great look, really. And there's been some important things to take care of. But she's back. So if that's correct, and the board meeting is basically a conclave to determine who the next, what the next move is, and if these rumours that are gathering pace around Edinburgh are correct, which is that Hearts want to have the new guy in for the last 2 games, then it'll be really interesting. And if it is Derek McInnes, then good luck with the phone call to Billy Bowie, as you said. And then, if you're Derek McInnes, wow, take that job on, and then your second game in charge of going back to Rugby Park, that'll be interesting. But it makes sense in so many levels that it's probably unlikely to happen.
AJSC Tech says, computer says Neil Critchley. I say going to buy a new computer. Mark Fairfield says...
Switch it on and switch it on. Off again.
Marzuno says, no brainer. McInnes must have been scratching his head when Ferguson was appointed to Rangers. What's both your guys' gut feeling? Do you think this is something that will happen? If not before the end of the season, maybe in the summer?
This is what you cannot predict it, because it will come down to who's in charge of making this decision. Do they want to try to appear, as if they've worked something out that nobody else has worked out, or do they want to go and do the obvious thing? Sometimes in football, especially recently, there's been this temptation to avoid doing the obvious thing because, we have to look as if we're smarter than that. If they want to do the obvious and the right thing, then they pick up the phone, they have the conversation with Kilmarnock, and they see if they can do a deal. So it's basically it's an impossible question to answer, Daniel. And
answer it anyway.
No, I can't, because this is the club that gave you Neil Critchley. Would anybody have put their hand up to that one?
Aye.
And I'd like to go walk into the boardroom right now and ask people to put their hand up that thought it was a good idea right now. The people would be diving under the table. So look, if they want to do the sensible thing, the thing that was probably work out to be in their best interest, you make the call, you see if you can get a deal done, you get Derek McInnes. And if not, you go back to the computer. Maybe the computer said no to Derek McInnes. Might have done, probably did the last time.
Sometimes, Jacko's right, sometimes the answer's staring you in the face. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you're just mad to ignore it. And
almost feels too obvious, if you know what I mean. It's so obvious.
And that's the problem, Daniel. That's why they went down this other route last time round. And look where it's got them.
Yeah.
Aye. Fair point. Scott, do you think it will happen?
My gut feeling is it probably will. Aye. I mean, there's been... we know there's never kind of no smoke without fire, so it seems to be that he's top of the list or high up in the list. It would be a good move for him. Jacko's right, might be difficult initially to get him out of Kilmarnock, but I think it's a move Derek McInnes would want if it's on the cards. And I think after going with Critchley, and you could argue the last 2 appointments, Stephen Naismith obviously got the job when he was really inexperienced, did well initially, and then it kind of went pear-shaped and they had to change at that point as well. So it's an obvious thing to say, but I mean, they really do need to get this one right. And as Jacko says, the kind of the low risk factor with McInnes is clear. So why not? No, why not go and do what you think is the right thing? I think ultimately we'll get it. Whether it's before the end of the season, I'm not sure, but I think he probably will end up there.
The thing is, Scott, we were just talking there about Brendan Rodgers and his experience, and when there was a difficult situation, not a disastrous situation, but a difficult one, a testing period in that first season at Celtic, he'd the experience, even though he did wobble a little bit, he'd the experience to come through, to think it out, to stay calm in a crisis. And I think that what you've seen over the last couple of weeks with Kilmarnock getting themselves into a dreadful position in the league, bottom 6, potentially getting dragged into the relegation issue, who stayed calm? When you look at the managers in that bottom 6, who, when the heat was really on, actually found a way through. I mean, Kilmarnock aren't safe yet. So it's interesting, again, timing-wise, I think Hearts and Kilmarnock can both take any doubt away this weekend. if the results go their way. And so at that point, you've got 2 games left for each, and there's nothing on them. So maybe that might facilitate a conversation, make it a little bit easier to get a deal done. If it is Derek McInnes that's the preferred candidate,
I think in terms of Killie's season, I think no, I'm not trying to totally defend Derek McInnes. It has been a poor campaign, but there's been mitigating circumstances
of
this
course,
season.
because he took them into Europe.
Exactly. I mean, you can't underestimate the impact European football had. Injuries to big players like Stuart Finlay, Kyle Vassell, just to name 2. Difficult contract situation with Danny Armstrong. Ends up he's no signed a deal. Might he end up at Hearts at some point if McInnes goes there? The glut of suspensions they had at the start of the season with red cards was
Playing with 10 men every Saturday.
Unheard of. So there has been kind of mitigating factors. I think ultimately you know what you're getting with Derek McInnes pretty much. You put him into a big club like Hearts. Talk about investment coming in for Tony Bloom. Should be a bit of money to spend. If he does go in this summer, of course there won't be any Europe, which probably hindered Stephen Naismith. No so much Neil Critchley, but certainly at the start of the season, he wouldn't have that to worry about. He'd have a full pre-season with him. To try and go and sort the squad out and try and kind of hit the ground running at the start of the Premiership campaign. So, as I say, it ticks a lot of boxes for me.
Dennis Mirren writes in saying, McInnes is crap. Nielsen was the best manager at Hearts. Why not go for him? Interesting shout. This one as well, if I can find it. Alfie Barnes says, wouldn't it be funny if McInnes was appointed just in time to relegate Killie on the final day? That would be peak Scottish football, wouldn't it?
And I think for that very reason, it'd be unlikely that Billy Bow would even entertain answering the phone if Kilmarnock's situation was still not determined. So maybe after the next round of fixtures, the picture looks a bit clearer.